Hey, Mr. Derry here. We're going to go over how to use Onshape to get a better understanding of ackermann angle. Here's a sketch that I've drawn in Onshape. I'm going to just go edit that sketch real quick, activate it, and just show you what you're going to be doing. So this is supposed to be a top view of our electric vehicle. These are our wheels. This is our wheelbase and our width. And you'll notice that if I grab one of these wheels and turn, you can see that one wheel, the inside wheel, is turning at a greater angle than the outside wheel. So by building this little sketch, what my hope is that you understand the relationship between the ackermann angle and how that affects steering geometry. I also want to quickly review the parts associated with our steering. We've got this tie rod connecting our steering arms, which are rotating about a kingpin, which is connected to our axle and our wheel. The ackermann angle, this angle right here that was established, is going to change if the wheelbase of our car were to change. That angle, the longer we make our wheelbase, you know, the change in that angle, you'll see a relative change. Likewise, if the car were wider or narrower, it's going to affect that angle as well. So I want to get started here in Onshape. At this point, you should have gone through the sketching tutorial and have a little bit of understanding on that, and hopefully we can get you rolling on getting this thing drawn up pretty quickly. So I'm going to go to Onshape and create a new document, and we're going to call it might as well, let's call it our last name first, and gotta look. All right, ackermann angle. All right, so go ahead and hit create, and it's going to bring us into a brand new document here for this little project. Now, hopefully you remember some of what I'm going to go over from the tutorials you watched. I'm going to pick the front view. I'm going to right click with my mouse, and I'm going to create a new sketch on there. And if I hit the N button on my keyboard, I'm going to look normal to it. I could also hit the front button here. Now, before I get started, I want to make sure that your mouse settings are set up like mine. So if you go to your account and you go to preferences, notice that I have changed my mouse controls to act as though I was driving SolidWorks. Some of you might be familiar with SolidWorks. I think it's the way to go. It certainly will make it so that your mouse is doing what my mouse is doing during this tutorial. So make sure you set that to SolidWorks, and your units should have already been set up to inches. If not, we can make some changes along the way here. All right, I'm going to go back to Onshape here and go to my documents. Seems to be running pretty slow. All right, get back into my ackermann angle project. So I'm going to right click and edit this sketch because I jumped out of it for a moment. And again, I can hit the front button because that's the plane that it's on, or I could hit the end button and go normal too. All right, so we're going to draw a series of lines that are going to represent some of the dimensions on our car. So I'm going to grab the line tool, and I'm going to switch it to be a construction line, and I just want to draw a vertical line here. I'm just clicking with my left mouse button and dragging. I'm going to grab the dimension tool and go ahead and put a dimension on that right away. It's going to be 60 inches. That's the wheelbase of my car. Now, as I scroll in and out, I might lose track of where I am. I'm using the middle button on my mouse. If I hold the control button down and the middle button down, I can pan and then zoom in and out. So you should get comfortable with moving around in Onshape workspace. Again, control and middle mouse button allow us to pan. Middle scroll button zooms us in and out. All right, I want to draw another line. This case it's going to be for construction again. I'm going to click and drag, and oops, I forgot to make that for construction, so I can just switch. If I click on it, click on that line, make it orange, and then make it construction. All right, if you get into trouble, you can always just hit delete and start again. So I can go line command for construction and just draw it over again. I'm going to throw a dimension on that line and make it 38 inches long. And now I want to put a relationship between this line and this point right here, which is the origin. You'll notice that my line is black. Yours should also be black because you should have drawn that vertical line right off of the origin. I'm now going to create a midpoint relationship between this line and the origin here, and you'll notice that it all turns black, which means it's fully defined. All right, so those represent, this represents the middle of my rear wheel, and these 2 points are going to represent my kingpins, or my pivot points. So we've got that fixed. Let's go ahead and draw our wheels now. So I'm going to go under the rectangle tool, and I'm going to pick a center point rectangle, and I'm going to click on this guy and just draw a rectangle like that. And I'm going to go ahead and put some dimensions on it. So if I click, if I click on that, well, I guess we can just grab the dimension tool. Let's make the wheels, our wheels are 20 inches by 2 inches. Oops, not 20 by 20, they're 20 by 2. All right, so we've got our rear wheel, and before we draw our other wheels, we need to draw the axles that they're attached to and the kingpin. So I'm going to draw the other wheels a little bit differently. I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, but this time I'm going to do an aligned rectangle. I'm just going to kind of go off over here and draw this wheel. All right, again, I'm going to grab my dimension tool, which is right here. You can also hit the D button, and we'll put our dimensions on that. So it's also 20 by 2. All right, and now I want to draw an axle coming off of that. So I'm going to grab a line here, and you'll notice if I hover over there, I'll get a little orange box right there that shows up that says I'm on the midpoint of that line. I want to select that so it has a relationship, and I don't want to draw it straight out. Notice that that line is perpendicular to that line. That's what that symbol there means. I'm also going to put a dimension on that, and we'll make that, I don't know, 4 inches. Okay, so this is the axle that our wheel is attached to. That's looking good. All right, I want to then take that point and make it coincident with this line. All right, and actually before I do that, let's draw another wheel for the other side. So quick review, grab my rectangle tool. I've got the align rectangle tool. I'm just going to draw another rectangle over here, and going to make it, oops, I got the wrong, if I hit the tab button, that's the one that wants to be 20, this one wants to be 2. So I'll make that 2. Once again, grab my line tool. If I hover over the midpoint, I get that little orange box. I click, I make sure that my line is perpendicular, and I go in and grab a dimension tool and make that 4 as well. So now I got to attach these 2 wheels to my kingpins up here. I should probably make them look like kingpins. So I'm going to grab my circle tool here and put it right on the end of that. And I'll do another one over here just so that they look like kingpins. If I notice if I hit the escape button for a moment, if I click on these 2, I can make both of those circles equal to each other by clicking on this. And then I can give them a dimension, and I think our kingpins are about 1 inch in diameter, so something like that would work. Okay. Now I want to put this right on the center of my kingpin. So what's that going to look like? So I'm going to hit the escape button. I'm going to click on this point, then I'm going to click on this point, and I'm going to come up here and make them coincident. And now those 2 are connected. Likewise, I'll come over here, click on this guy. You got to do them one at a time, and this guy, and I'll come up here to coincident, and now they are locked there. Hit the escape button again. If I grab this, you'll notice that my wheel can pivot around my kingpin. And it looks like it's getting bigger and smaller. Don't worry about that. It's really not happening. It's just the graphics regenerating. But these two are not connected to each other, and we're missing our steering arms. So before we do that, we're going to put a temporary dimension in, and then we're going to have to delete it because I need to make these things line up. So I'm going to grab my dimension tool and just put a dimension from here to here and make it 180 degrees, which will make it a straight line. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. We're going to delete these dimensions later, but I want to line them up for now. So my two wheels are lined up. Now, you may, I'm going to hold my control button down and my middle mouse button, and I'm going to pan, and then I'm going to zoom out with my middle mouse button. And you may remember that the ackermann angle is determined by drawing an imaginary line from the center of the wheel through the kingpin. So I'm going to grab my line tool, and I'm going to go from the center of my kingpin to my rear wheel, right in the middle of my rear wheel. Now, this angle is the angle that I need. So I'm just going to measure that and kind of take a mental note or write it down somewhere on a piece of paper. So let's see what that angle looks like. I think it's going to be a crazy number. So I go to here, and it's a crazy number. It's 107.571. Let's just say it's 107.6. That's accurate enough for what we need. I just rounded up. 107.6. Sounds good. All right. So this line right here, I'm not concerned about. So I can get rid of that for the moment. I'm going to delete that. I do need to remember the 107.6 though. All right, so now I'm going to come in here. Again, hold my control button down. Whoops. Hit end to get back to normal too. All right, I'm going to grab my line tool, and this is going to be our steering arm. And I'm going to draw two of those. Grab my dimension tool and make them both the same length. So my dimension tool is right here. Let's make them 3 inches long. And we need to put that angle in. So I'm going to click on this line and this line. And that was our 107.6 angle, which is our ackermann angle. And oops, hit end for normal. I forgot to hold my control button down. And make sure you select these two lines again for our 107.6. Okay, now we need to put a tie rod between the two of those. So I'm going to grab a line and go from here to here. Whoops. Didn't do that right. Grab my line command. I'm going to click and drag to here. All right. And I'm going to remove these dimensions and add a dimension to this. You'll see that this will turn blue when I take these 180s off here, I think. So I hit the escape button. I'm going to click on my 180 and hit delete. And notice that things have turned blue. Now I got to grab my dimension tool and come back here and put this dimension on here and just accept it as what it is. We're good. We're now ready to see how this thing works. So if I hit the escape button and grab the corner of my wheel, you'll notice that I now have a functioning steering. I don't have a rack in here and a steering wheel, but I do have a tie rod that connects these, and you'll notice that these angles change. So that's going to be it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to have you play around with this, set some angles, and make some measurements to see the relationship between the two angles.